Hello, everyone. This is Alicia Gray, or AM Gray if you prefer, with episode 5 of the Wayward Black Woman podcast. How's everyone doing today? I hope everyone's having a good day. I personally, in Bali have had ups and downs just like everywhere else I've moved. There was Thailand when I first decided to take off internationally. And before that, I was in North Carolina. I lived in Virginia. I lived in Florida. I lived in Maryland. I lived in Cali, all over the U.S. And I like to explore a couple more places, if I can. What I'm finding, though, which is something I've discussed before, is the persistence of, I can't really describe it, something which I'd like to describe as a delusional disorder. And I think, with my background in psychology, that's really the only thing that can be used to describe what's happening. Now, before the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs, did not believe that there was anything going on with black men. There was no harassment of women, no sex trafficking, no absolutely horrendous, immature behavior, horrendously immature, no possibility of black men with this persona that they're putting forth of being diabolical, right? And so now people are saying things like Diddy's the devil. Well, this is the problem I have with you allowing for other people to shape your opinion about anything in the black community. First and foremost, you need to be strong enough to have your own opinions about things and not wait for other people to tell you how to feel. This has been a problematic process in my life in understanding how people can be so impressionable by others that don't really look out for their well-being, right? They're not thinking about you when they're telling you lies, or when I say they, I mean like, other races, or when other people pretend to stand up for black men, or other races put down one particular type of African-American person, say an African-American woman. I've seen more internalizing psychologically of their behavior by black folk than what I would care to even remotely discuss. And it's disturbing. Before you'd admit that you're internalizing a lot of white supremacy and a lot of white male misogyny, you'd rather blame the other party for being someone who's not telling the truth, who obviously is trying to get some sort of attention, or you're just insecure about yourself and you're not going to say anything, right? And a lot of times we call that the bystander effect, where you're too insecure or apathetic or whatever's causing you not to act in a situation where someone is in distress. You just stand by. And in some cases, it's something where it's malicious. For instance, you don't like the person. You could be someone who thinks the person was prejudiced, such as in the original case of the bystander effect. It was a white woman who lived in an all-black neighborhood, just about, and, she was attacked. So the neighbors perceived her as being an outsider, and they did not necessarily act upon her death right away, right? So in modern times, we would say, if you saw someone you were jealous of or had reasons to be jealous of, if something happened to that person, you would just stand by and not say anything. And worse than that, we see situations where people participate in the malicious behavior towards the party because they think they can't get caught, such as in, cases like Sean Diddy Combs. So the groupthink that's happening there is happening more and more in the black community, where people feel like they can get away with things because white people have low self-esteem and are going to cover their backs right? And they continue to act in manners that are not only delusional, but also illegal. So we have to start looking at why this is occurring. And I mean, I'm talking to a point of, yes, you can be apathetic and have your own family. I have my own family as well. But when things are taken back so far as to maybe when I was in elementary school in the 80s, and say, for instance, here in Bali, these people don't have products for African American people's hair. You wouldn't expect them to, having only themselves for the most part. But then most of the braiders are either going to be Asian, there's a couple, and then the rest of them are going to be white. And we feel kind of a special kind of way about that. There might be a black braider here. I haven't really looked, but I tend to do my own hair for the most part. So I just need the supplies, as many of us do in the States, right? And it is a culture shock not to see, and it's the same way in Thailand and most Asian countries, someone not acknowledge your existence, right? It's not about hair. For black women, it's acknowledging that we exist and we have a special need. And even if it were one store, a token store, what like they think they have in Thailand, but it's in the back of a salon or something. I'm like, I'm not doing that, right? But you know what I'm saying? Something. And so the majority of people from Africa, and they were taught through colonialism, some of them, to acknowledge this type of behavior and to not only accept it, but approve of it, right? And so when we deal with these people from a 1980-ish type of standpoint, it's difficult because we have to start all over again and face the reality that white supremacy and colonialism, right, have covered the whole entire globe for the most part. There's a few places where they have not gone and tried to colonize people, but understand they know less about us than what they know about, colonization. So when we show up and we have confidence and we have things that they've never seen before, they're quick to disavow us and internalize versus listening to someone who might have an alternative perspective, such as someone who's engaged in white supremacist settler colonialism, right? So when we start to deal with the bottom line, we in the African American community also do that. We still internalize racism to a point where it's almost impossible to breathe in some instances, right? And we have to stop being in denial about that. When I see delusional disorder, back to what I was talking about before, right? People develop anxiety due to their delusions, right? They become depressed. And I think there's a lot of African American people who are depressed. Our marriage rates have been down. We already know why that's happening. The prison industrial complex back in the 80s locked up many black men. You can say school to prison pipeline. We, of course, now are saying cradle to prison. But that's not the only excuse. That excuse isn't going to work anymore. Because somewhere around the 90s, and, we know about this from textbooks. Those of you guys who've ever taken any sociology course, you should have studied black women's studies somewhere in there. Belle Biv DeVoe, when they started talking about calling women hoes and, jacuzzis with underage girls, that was a turning point from New Edition. For those of you guys who understand music and have listened to R&B music, I was a huge fan of New Edition. And I used to go back when I was close to my sister in my teen years to New Edition concerts with her and her boyfriend who became her husband, one of her husbands, because she's been divorced a couple times and then remarried him again, but that's a different subject. But yeah, we used to have fun, and they used to have 5-hour-long concerts and dance their behinds off and do the dress up. I mean, the suits to the nines. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, just perfect from head to toe. And tell you the truth, black women really are flattered by that, and we love that. Right? Dance steps on point. And if you really want to know the truth, looking at the music industry today, they did way too much. because no one respects them the way they should, except for the original black communities that supported them, and they didn't gain the commercial success they should have, except for in the black community, where of course we still acknowledge them. Instead, what happened was they were ripped off. They weren't paid properly in the beginning, and then they had to, in order to make money, join the cabal, whatever you want to call them, Freemasons, Illuminati, whatever. That's when they started coming out with the, backstage, underage, adolescent, how you doing, right? Specifically pointing to child molestation and calling women hoes and bees. And, when Belle Biv DeVoe branched out, I think they were ticked off, Michael Bivins and such, because they didn't get paid properly from New Edition. And they said, you know what, F it, we're going to go and make our money. And I want people to understand this, right? Specifically how you make money. You disrespect black women, period. They didn't have to go to a course. They didn't have to ask people, how do you do this? How do I make money? How do I join into this group? They knew how to do it. They did everything but call us nappy head hoes, right? They knew how to do it. This is how. Now, I was a teen at the time. So for me, I didn't even recognize it, neither did anyone else, because it was a sneak kind of thing. We had never seen men be misogynist to men be misogynist to our faces before, especially black men. So we thought it was a game. It was cool. Oh, they're trying to be tough. They're trying to be hard. This is cool. Everybody, as LL Cool J said, had a New Edition Bobby Brown button on their sleeve, right? Because we were still attached to New Edition, the classic, N.E. Heartbreak, You're Not My Type of Girl. And even then, they started swaying away from the bubblegum type of New Edition into a more harder stance, which tells me they were having a switch in their masculinity at that time, which men go through. But you have to be cautious of the fact that if men go through phases, they're going to, in some way, disrupt other people's thinking, right? They always do. And that's because they believe they have the privilege of doing so, irregardless of if they're in a situation or not where they really should be doing that. And many black women did not grow up with men in their families. We'd never seen purposeful, malicious behavior towards us. We didn't know. Because it's uncalled for, right? Like, I don't even know you. Why would you call me a name, a hoe, a B or something? You're just saying that in general, Same thing with the gangster rap and all of that. They're not talking to us. We've never taken it personally. But somewhere along the line after that, it became, this is who I'm talking to you. And now we see the transition of the women internalizing that crap, the Megan Thee Stallions and whoever else, to think that it's okay to be called that, and then to, exemplify what they consider to be their version of reacting to it, right? So this has been kind of a plan. And I think that what happened was the women along the way didn't talk to one another. And now other races of men and women are joining into that type of delusion. Excuse me. So what happens is people are depressed. White people are depressed because, who knows, they're bored, they're lonely. I'm not saying all white people have money, but why would you be more concerned about what's going on with an African American person than yourselves? Why would you be totally just disenfranchised by your own community and decide to go bother someone else unless you felt that you had privilege over them, right? One thing that I see a lot more than what I've ever seen before, not only other races joining into this delusion because they feel like no one's going to stop them. Any man who has a penis between his legs feels like he has a right to disempower a black woman. We all know this. We can go all over the world and every man thinks that he can tell us what to do if they don't see a man here that they can spar with. because, yeah, their penis might actually be small. They might actually have a true delusion there. But I'm talking about the concept of she can't do anything about it because I can always overpower her. The slavery mentality. And it is still quite disturbing. No matter how much you do, no matter how intelligent you are, you're still ending up with a bunch of losers who feel that they can, at any given moment, attack you because you don't have anyone to help you, especially if you're alone like I am with 2 children. And I do recognize that. One of the things that many people will tell you is not to go to Egypt, which a lot of us want to go to Egypt. And I've heard this complaint over and over again from vloggers, from everybody. The men stand around and are completely misogynist, will fight each other, will harass one another, will put you in the middle of it. Sometimes they will run behind women, especially in places like India. I think the misogyny, not only in Islam, but also in certain parts of areas which have adopted this narrative, right? That men are still patriarchally in charge of everything, regardless of their beta males or they're pieces of trash, they're sleazy, and they're always kind of like hard up, right? To the point where you can't get into a car, an Uber, somewhere and think you're going to make it to your destination. Now, there's always a common criminal that's going to, try to rob you in some of these areas you go to, no matter where it's going to be. Because they always think, they don't care if you're African American or not. You must have money if you're here. My life hasn't been well. I'm going to take my chances. They're just sleazy. But what I commonly see is the support, no matter of what religion it is, of men are superior. And it carries through in a lot of different passive-aggressive ways. And it becomes delusion. They start believing themselves to be more than what they are. Now, some of it is jealousy. Some of it is just plain narcissism. And the remainder is a hostility towards women, especially black women, that is a form of hostile sexism that probably hasn't ever been seen before. So the more we start to spread out as black women, the more we're going to start to realize the world may not be friendly towards us. And this happens sometimes in the Caribbean too, believe it or not, because men feel that their masculinity is being threatened. Even though you don't do anything to deserve it, that delusion that they have and that insecurity tells them that you're a threat. And there's something called erotomania. erotomania, erotomania, where the person begins to stalk and harass you based upon an erotic delusion that they're having in their mind. I can tell you, before I left the States, there was a person with this type of erotomania that was stalking me, and I wish I was making it up. For those of you who watch my Instagram page, you saw the noise and the nonsense from the other day. Ridiculous. It's everywhere I go. And yes, it can be a noisy and busy place, but a lot of it is based upon very simple-minded categorizations of women who are alone, black women, and especially Americans. I think, honestly, it's very much based in the loves of education, but in my mind's eye, I see that same stalkerish type of mentality in this person who thinks he can enable within others who don't have good levels of education, that same type of stalkerish mentality, easily, whether this person have Diddy type money or not. Whether the other day I was laughing on Twitter because someone said the feds were the Nazis, right? Because those Nazis that were marching in Ohio, and people were saying they're stupid feds, they need to take their masks off or whatever, or this is what happens when feds take a break, whatever joke that it was. There are people that hide their identities, and we're finding more and more that these identities are very toxic towards our environment and especially towards black women. But what is most disturbing, I think, is the erotomania delusion that black women are still within a slave state. We are rapeable because we're alone. And these men are trying to find ways. Whenever you have a hotel or a home, always double check the doors, double check the windows. The misogyny does not end. It depends on the level of insecurity of the men in whatever area, whether it be the States or anywhere in the world that you move. It is unfortunate. We are still at the mercy, as women, period, of the fragile minds of whatever men decide to conclude, no matter how silly it might be, until we say something. And then, it's on, which is why a lot of these people are passive aggressive. They will not approach you. They will stalk you. They'll live beside you. I found out my Google account, for instance, had been hacked the other day. And I'm like, oh, Lord, because they told me I had a breach. And they canceled one of my cards. I'm like, why are you canceling my card? I've had it for years. Apparently, there was some type of unusual activity. I'm like, what? I've had this card for years. I haven't done anything with this card. And then they closed the account right away, which was absolutely ridiculous. I have a loan with this bank. And they closed the card. I was like, what is going on? And I suspect it's connected to that type of situation I'm talking about, the delusional behavior. I can control you. It is similar to domestic violence, but it's not, because you don't know your stalker. And it is the least type, that we see within stories of rape or sexual assault or even stalking, because a lot of people know their stalkers. But in cases where you don't, that's when we go into the delusional disorder, because it can't be any other way. Even if you did know him and you say you haven't seen this person in years, or saw him at Walmart and walked past him at the grocery store or something, and he just decided, hey, I'm infatuated with this thing. I'm going to attach myself to everything this person does, follow her around, find out where she lives, and it's happening more and more. It's not something where it's a rarity anymore. Like, I think they hacked my location through Google. Seriously, because Google sends you locations when you make any type of reservation. Even if you make, if you have an apartment or something you're renting, you have to do a lease. And all of that goes generally, back and forth through your Google account. A lot of people use Google. And I think they just simply hacked my account because it sent notifications of where I was, exactly where I was going. And so this is what's happening. There's a practical explanation. When my account was hacked, I said, okay, yeah, this is just I'm not going to use the slur I use, but it's a small male penis, right? A phallic symbol, a dumb phallic symbol. So, long story short, when people end up using violence, right, with this erotomania delusion, it becomes stalking. And that's been happening even to me, someone with a background in psychology, because delusionally, these people want to pretend. And I told you guys from the beginning, I don't know what moron is out there telling you lies, that I'm not intelligent or not to listen to me when I'm the only person helping you right now. And I'm not trying to be a smart butt. I'm not trying to be conceited. I'm trying to tell you the truth. And a lot of people listen to my stuff, but then they pretend like they don't hear it. They're more intent to be delusional, to try to stalk someone based upon what someone else said, because they have low self-esteem. Maybe they have intellectual problems, but most of them don't. They just basically are insecure about themselves and would rather be sleeping with the enemy, because those people don't have your well-being in mind. They don't care anything about you. In fact, it's the opposite. And I think you're going to find out a lot about that with Trump. You have to start being smart and not just sitting here following the leader or someone with the most money or the person with the most clout, or even, the white male who seems like he's a nice guy but is really, really into following and stalking the black woman by herself. You know what I mean? Like, use common sense. A loser is a loser. whether you have money, and that makes it even more understandable how this person could have erotomanic, that's correct, delusion. Because why would you have all the power in the world and all the money in the world that you want and still go after someone who doesn't know you exist, doesn't know you're stalking them, or maybe they do know, but they don't know who you are, and then purposely try to exploit that person just as you would some sort of female slave? It's disturbing. And we need to start understanding this. And they spread that delusion to other men, because if I found a sneaky way of breaking into your place, of finding out where you are, I'll tell other men how to do it. Hey, all you got to do is hack their Google account. Then you can go find that girl from 6 years ago that wouldn't date you, and she won't ever know the difference. Now, when you look at things, combining that with what Diddy was doing, drugging people, and how many people know now what drugs that you can use. They're using baby oil, quote unquote. But how many men know how to break into your house and use that quote unquote baby oil on you while you're sleeping, right? If you want to look at the facts, most women, you guys know I have an MPH too, so I'm going to throw it in there. Most women are actually sexually assaulted in their own homes, right? So it's not something where people don't break in your windows anymore. The problem is, like when I was, in D.C. at Howard, when I was at Howard University for a short time, I saw a newscast where the male newscaster was an older gentleman, and he actually reported on a sexual assault. And I remember this to this day. I think it's 2008, 2009. I still remember. And he was like, she left the window open. What? So basically, victim blaming and shaming the black woman for leaving a window open, he thought, to let in a rapist. And this was on a regular newscast channel, And I thought to myself, this dude needs to be fired. And I can't believe that. I just heard that. I can't believe that he just said that. And that's what the problem is. You can't sit up here and keep blaming women for the problems that men are causing. You have to stand up to men. And this is what I felt like with Trump. White women never successfully stood up to Trump. Even the E. Jean Carroll thing, she just basically sued him from umpteen years ago. She's still afraid of him. We are sitting here always in the down slot of whatever happens to or with white women. And when Kamala stood up and said, I'm going to do this, well, do it on your own, Kamala. I don't even really believe that you're a black woman. I'm not trying to be rude. You're multiracial or whatever. But you don't speak for other black women, and we're not the muse of society. When it's time for you to stand up to a white man, your maid or your house worker, your slave or whatever will get up and stand up to massa for you. Oh, no, honey, you can do that for yourself. Oh, massa, don't beat her. Don't hour her, massa. Use me. Hell no. Hell no. If they got to put up with this crap, we got to put up with it too. Or I should say, if we got to put up with it, they got to put up with it, because I'm not going to sit up here and help any damn body. And it's going to be hell for all of us. God forbid, there is an alt-right situation and the white women decide to join in, because either way, they have that choice, you see. They're still going to deal with sexism, but will they decide to engage in racism? And we know, I told you guys from the beginning, when the election was called, that's what the whole thing is. White women can always vote for Trump and not say anything. At any given time, they can choose to be racist narcissists and fall in line with colonial behavior, such as in Asia, where they think we're never going to go, or that we're rarely here, enough to really say anything. If we are here, we're African, we're from all over the continents, all over the world, and we're not necessarily going to engage in conversation about racism. So they can get away with whatever they want. Old tropes, our hair is dirty, because they don't have the proper supplies anywhere in the world that you see for any woman, much less black women. They're really behind in that stuff. And, you break out and all the old school stuff that used to happen because the ingredients aren't necessarily what they say they're going to be. You're not going to get organic this and that everywhere you go. You aren't going to hardly get it anywhere. But we aren't allowed to say anything about that. And you're definitely not going to get black hair care products that are quality. There aren't any. Unless you look at Lazada, like a shopping app, or just like AliExpress or something, and try to get it within a week or something if you can. They have a couple other shopping apps. That's the only way that you could possibly get something that's relevant. Even then, I ordered some Eco Styler gel. It wasn't the quality. It smelled like chemicals and it had the same brand name on it, but it was not the same product. If that product were sold in the United States, those people would be in jail. And I do see it was sealed, but it smelled just totally different. It smelled like chemicals. So understand the point of view of people who you really have to understand is not fair. You have to use Du Boisian triple consciousness here, right? And I'm not going to say Du Boisian like Cornel West. I'm just going to say Du Boisian. And understand other people's points of view, and it's not fair to you. You have to understand your point of view. You have to understand somebody else's point of view, and then you have to understand, how to not internalize both of those points of views and explain it back to that person. Like, okay, how can I explain this to you? And if I did, how can I do it without hurting your feelings and making you feel inferior? And then, trying to express that in a way that makes sense. And a lot of times there are things that are entwined within sexism as well, which is why women here don't necessarily have the same rights. They wear the hijabs a lot. There's a lot of the Islam, not only here, but in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, all over this part of Asia. So they're not going to expect to have the same things that other women have. But then you have those who've been exposed to colonialism and they want to lighten their skin to white. That's still so annoying to me. All over Asia, and then the hair flips and all of that thing that we associate with white girls, right? And there's no understanding that black people won't internalize that stuff. Like they don't have anything past 1980 maybe of an understanding of black folk. This must be how black people feel. They must be jealous of us because they don't have products. They don't get that we're way past that. And there's no way in the world we're going to internalize anything like that or try to lighten our skin according to whiteness. Yeah, we might try not to get 3 shades darker because the sun is so freaking hot here, and it is hot. You will be sweating, and you will darken within an hour of getting here, no matter what shade of black that you are. So, yeah, I would recommend some SPF and something else, maybe some papaya soap or something natural, just so you could keep the tone you had when you got here, if that's your thing. But I don't understand the whiteness thing. I don't see how they can't understand that white supremacists don't like that. And I'm not trying to be funny. And that's another thing you have to kind of internalize, or you have to use Du Boisian triple consciousness about. You can't really tell them that, because you are conscious of the fact that there's a division line between Asian and white in a lot of different areas, especially in Western cultures, and sometimes they really don't like Asian cultures. Now, it's like, I'm laughing because it's like you had a nerve to be angry at African-American people, and a lot of African-American people would be your friends. But you're so busy internalizing whiteness that you don't get it. And this is a thing about sexism. They're so busy pretending that African-American people are still in a slave state, or that all women are beneath their intelligence levels because they feel so insecure about their manhood, no matter what race they are, that they've decided to, just attack you, according to, of course, the white man that's helping them in the background, right? And I see that with black men a lot, too. The Diddy's. There's a white man behind Diddy, because I can tell you this right now, he wouldn't have got away with any of that unless there was a white man behind him. I don't know if it's Clive Davis. I don't know. For a while, Quincy Jones was out there. We all knew about that. That's why when he died, I didn't say anything. I honestly felt very uncomfortable with him holding hands with Michael Jackson many years ago. I just did. I didn't like, my daughter went to a K-pop thing a couple years ago. I think she was in California, and said Quincy Jones showed up. I'm like, what? You know, we have to remember back in the day, Tupac said Quincy Jones wanted to sleep with him when he was trying to date his daughter. And I have nothing against gay or bi men, as long as you're confident in who you are and you don't try to R-word either men or women. So there's a lot of stuff that's been going on with men who have this type of behavior. We know stereotypically some of them are in the closet. And gay men don't like, openly gay men don't like that either, so don't call me a bigot. They hate that crap too. It's just like, the trans thing. A lot of gay men are speaking out against trans men, saying they're women, and then devaluing who a woman is at the same time. A lot of gay men are like, we're gay men, we're not women. And you have to understand, when men say that, that's not misogynist, that's just the truth. So when we start dealing with a lot of these male insecurities and how insulting it is to our intelligence level, and how this delusional disorder is caused because they really feel like they're not good enough. I'm going to make this person just like a rapist. And you might say it's a power rape type thing. Power rapists feel like they don't have power over women, and they want to make sure that that woman understands who they are. But because this is such a passive aggressive thing, it's very much delusional. Like, I know this person isn't going to be the type of person that is going to ever say anything, because I've been taught that women like this are this way. Some of it is prejudice. Some of it is just basically sexism, and they found a way to pretend, quote unquote, that this is just the way that it is. And white men will help enable that behavior. And every now and again, you'll see a Diddy type. They're still perverts, and they still need psychological help, but it's a delusion, right? We see this with the racism that's going on, like I said, in Ohio. It's a delusion, and there's a term that's associated with that where, excuse me, some of these alt-right people, these racists, are being, called psychologically impaired. Where they're called mentally ill because they believe that delusionally people are trying to replace the white race. It's a delusional disorder in the DSM. However, I don't think that's really the problem. We all know by 2050 there are going to be more minorities in the U.S. than white folk. It's just a reality. But it's the fact that they can't face that. They still want to be the head of all of the minority cultures, so they've decided to start attacking minorities, right? So it's that inferiority complex that's causing it, more so than I think mental illness. They just feel that they don't want to not be in front of everyone else anymore. They don't want to lose their privilege. So back to when we're talking about delusional disorders with men and women, right? Now, I do see this with some white women, but they're just basically riding the tails of white male patriarchy and all of the 80s stuff I was telling you about that we got rid of, where they're arrogant and they think that basically the gates are open, right? And I hate to tell them, but if they don't see someone guarding the gate, it's because they purposely left it open so they can walk into the gates of hell. You know what I'm saying? Thinking they're walking someone else. So I invite them to keep walking, right? It's a trap. So they can go ahead and keep walking if they want to. We left it open on purpose. Whoops, I guess I left the cat out of the bag. But one thing about that psychopathology, right? The delusion of erotomania. When men perceive themselves to be in charge of women that they're not dating, that they don't know, women can't go outside. Like, sometimes I'll go outside here and I hear stupid gunshots. Like, the women should be never seen or can't leave their home. They'll fantasize that they're in charge of women. And since they have no control over their own lives, right? Not even to, hold their penis to go to the bathroom like children. They want to pretend that they're delusionally in charge of a woman. They can control her. And it's to them put forth as humor, but it's actually just them feeling insecure about themselves because they have mental health issues, right? So you go places and they try to control you. They try different ways of making you feel uncomfortable in your own space. They want to make sure that, you feel like they're in your life, even though they're not here. They have to know where you are at all times. They have to know if you're going out to the club. If you're not going out enough, they want to know why you're not going out. You can't just sit home. If you do go out, they want to follow you and start different type of scenarios which make you uncomfortable either way. It's a new thing where men feel like it's not just spreading their legs on the subway so you can't sit down, but it's hostile sexism that's based in delusion. Right now, I'm looking at a study here. Okay, it's from the Asian Journal of Psychiatry. And it's talking about gender differences in the young onset persistent delusional order, right? And that's the actual name of it. And it was tagged by Rashmi Arasapa. I'm not going to try these names. Nelai, Chitra, Karishma, R. Kulkarni, etc. And so what they're talking about is how these men sometimes have comorbid substance dependence. So what that means is they also have substance abuse problems, because we know, and this happens in the gay community a lot, I'm not saying these men are gay, I'm just telling you, they suppress their actual psychological wanting of other things, such as other men. And they use women as an object, right? And we see that as a Freudian defense mechanism a lot, where they want to actually engage with other men and they feel like their masculinity is being threatened by every woman, and they're looking for an object to project that insecurity onto. And, it says men had a family history of substance abuse, dependence, and PDD. So this has been a family thing. This is a familial thing, right? They grew up with a man who was like that, who felt like a beta male, who felt like a put upon male, who felt like people didn't appreciate him, who had problems with masculinity, but perhaps the society either put up with it, co-signed on it, or whatever. And so they grew up thinking that it was okay. So when they see people from other societies, insecure white men with money, hey, this must be okay. And this is happening all around the world. And this black dude is just laughing, but inside he's crying when he sees black women being harassed and violated. This must be okay because nobody's saying anything. And it's spreading, that hostile sexism, but the sneaky, underhanded, backwards, sideways. I'm going to do something to you passively, aggressively, so that you don't know that I did it. What I call it is, and I hate to disrespect people in that area, but it happens a lot in the projects in low income areas, where people do things to be mean. They learn that first because they internalize that racism, and it happens so fast. You're like, why did this person be mean to me? Like when I got here, there was an African woman who was really, really, really just like hostile towards me. And I know a lot of you are saying, okay, you're not Pan-African, but she had internalized depression on fleek. And it was just like, where the hell is this coming from, right? Because we don't treat each other like that in the diaspora. We just don't. And you have to take that with a grain of salt. Some of these people did not have, and she was from London or from England somewhere, so that explained a lot of the colonialism that was embedded within her and why she would do that. So I'm not talking about all African folk, because a lot of African folks just like me, like whatever. Like there's 90 million people in Africa, I don't need this shit, right? There's 90 million African Americans, and I don't need somebody to tell me that I'm insecure about my hair, because that would be absolutely ridiculous. You'd have to be the dumbest person in the world to think that is what we think. So again, triple consciousness. Okay, I understand what I think. I understand what they think. How do I explain this in a way that I can think about it from her point of view and explain it back to her? And do they care? Because they're basically just internalizing whiteness anyway, because they can't be white. And that's sad to me, because a lot of white people, they don't deal with them. And it's like, what are you going to do? Who's going to have your back when that white person's racist? And I feel bad because a lot of people in America, when the Asian hate laws came down, said, where's our, and I was one of them. It's not about Asian people. It's about, because we don't have a hate crime law. But they were quick to give an Asian hate crime law, and we still haven't gotten ours. And I'll defend anybody against people who are white supremacists or people that don't like Asian people. But they won't necessarily do the same to us, right? I grew up with many Asian people, and if they've done things behind my back, it's been within this passive-aggressive manner because I've not seen it to my face. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Just means they already know not to do that. And a lot of them are intermarried in our community, so they probably wouldn't do it anyway. But it's just like people, you don't expect for everyone to understand that. But it's good to at least, let other people know who might be interested in this situation, who haven't gone through it before, so that they'll be well prepared. So again, we're going to go back to this article quickly, and then I'm going to go, because I just wanted to talk about it briefly. I don't want to talk too long today. Persistent delusional disorder, or PDD, is a psychotic illness characterized by the presence of one or more delusions and the absence of affective symptoms, hallucinations, or psychotic symptoms, right? So the prevalence is between 24 and 30 per 100,000, right? And that's between 0.7 and 3% of 100,000. So believe it or not, that's a lot. For somebody to be delusional completely in a society, that's a lot to even have 3%. So we're going back to DSM-5. It says the jealous type of PDD is more common in males than females, although there are no other major gender differences documented. So I'm not sure if there's a study with African Americans, men, but I want to see that study. I got to do some more research because I've seen this a lot. Is it jealousy? Is it inadequacy because the younger girls aren't dating the dudes anymore? Because I'm older, so I don't know what the insecurity levels are. See, and that's another level of consciousness that I have to enter. What are the younger people thinking? Right? And some of the younger dudes are cool. I haven't seen one in a while since they went on this campaign to divide all of the older people from the younger people, because the younger people wanted to have their own with the millennials, and then they found out that they weren't getting anything from it. Because when they found out white supremacy didn't respect them either, then they were stuck. So they tried to get away with our generation, which was Generation X, not getting anything, so they can push us out of the way, so they can get to where they are and kiss butt to a lot of white supremacists and realize white supremacists aren't going to respect you for kissing their ass either. Not that we ever did in our generation, but the thing is, to disrespect another generation, and especially a generation of black women who paved the way for you, that's what you get. You're wrong for doing it. And that's for anyone else who decided to backstab someone else in the African American community who was trying to help them. We had to start all over again, and it got them nowhere, and now they're stuck. I don't think that men were oblivious to this. I think that men felt insecure about themselves long before this generation, but it just manifested itself. Now, was it something going on behind the scenes, some child molestation, some Diddy type stuff? We don't know. I don't know. I don't have any men in my family except for a couple of cousins. But what I've noticed is this dichotomy. Women do it for yourselves, do as good or better than men. And if you ever make a mistake, even though I'm jealous of you, either way, because I'm going to talk about you if you don't do well, I'm going to talk about you bad, don't ever ask me for anything. Now, I don't know if everybody else's family is like that. And it's not just the men. A lot of people can have jealousy. I told you a long time ago, my mother acts that way towards me. That's what taught me a long time ago. I had to do it on my own or meet someone else who wasn't like that. So when I see a characteristic of someone who is like that, I notice it right away. When they're selfish, insecure about themselves, projecting, all that stuff, I'm like, hey, I got to go. I don't care if it's a date. I don't care if it's at the club. I don't care if it's at the mall. I got to get the hell away from you. Because that's one of the first things. And you should be able to, within the first 10 seconds, psychologically examine someone to be able to say, I need to safely get away from this person. The only thing is, sometimes it's not obvious. And that's what we're having a problem with this PDD. Not only if it, is it undetectable? Sometimes it could be undetectable for months. Like, these people are very good at hiding their true intentions. And that's where the delusion comes in. They perceive you as being whatever they've made up. In a way, it is similar to white supremacist delusion, where they perceive you as being stupid and vulnerable no matter what the truth is, right? They're always superior. They always know more until you tell them that they don't. And then when they look stupid, then they either try to play it off or be like, oh, I mean, why did you attack someone in the first place? If you didn't know any better, shouldn't you just have minded your own business instead of jumping on that privileged bandwagon? And it's sad because it's still happening so often. Men want that privilege that white men didn't give them, no matter what race they are. And you think by being violent towards women, that's going to happen? And we're talking in very uneducated areas sometimes. These men grow up with just their religion, their family structure. That's all they know. And you're walking up in there, minding your own business, and they just can't stand it. I don't know if there's an outside aggregator. I believe that there is, who's just taking advantage of this situation because these people have low self-esteem, low self-worth, who believe they can take advantage of people behind their backs. And that's where that sleazy ditty stuff comes in. I'm going to rape somebody when they're sleeping. I'm going to drug someone and then argue with them. And then, who after this person is unconscious under any circumstances thinks that that is funny or that that is acceptable? That's where the mental health and the violence and all that, the legal problems for these people start. And they're not going to stop until people start outing them for their behavior and telling them that joining behind these beta white men or wannabe hypermasculine, whoever, whatever they are, we know what they're hiding, who won't deal with their own demons, are actually attacking women. It does benefit white male supremacy. It benefits white supremacy, period. Whether you're Diddy or anybody else. Don't try to deny that and, persistently try to pretend like because you're a black person, it doesn't benefit racism. You're wrong. Period. You have to be held accountable for your behavior. And this is out of control. We have delusions of grandeur here. These men are, if I can control somebody who I don't know, this person is going to substitute for my partner. If I'm a loser and don't have a partner, it's going to substitute for my pretend partner. If that doesn't work, they're my mother. They're classic Freudian delusions, transference and delusions. It's just like, what on earth will stop this behavior? Only one thing will. If they're not going to say anything to your face, they're going to passively aggressively do it behind your back, because that's what sick people do. Like, to a point where if you check in anywhere, you really have to look around you and be like, is that the person that just gave me an Uber ride here, that checked in the day after, that's thinking about how to break into whatever because they see I'm by myself? And some of that is common sense, being a black woman alone, but a lot of it is also attached to the arrogance. Not just a sleazy guy who's outside smoking outside your home or whatever he might be, but I'm talking about the average understanding that this is okay, or it's cool, or it's funny, or he met the guy beside you and this will be cool. We'll harass her together. They're here by themselves. It's not funny. Sexism is never funny. Hostile sexism is even less funny. But sexism with a delusion that the other party is stupid because you feel inadequate about yourselves, with the attachment of racism or prejudicial, understanding, whatever your race might be. That's stupid. I hate the term stupid, so that's silly. You know as well as anybody else that this is a delusion. And you don't want to face that person, because when you do, it's going to be that fake persona where you're actually thinking about how many different ways can this person not know that you're stalking them. And it needs to stop. You can sit down here and listen to anybody else that you want to that tells you a million lies about me. You can try to steal my word. I had a cop one time do this to me, and because women go through harassment as well. And I remember I kept asking him, what are you talking about? He literally gave me a rough ride, and I refused to sit up here and cry or get upset with this person. He would not tell me what he wanted. I will tell you Black women go through 10 times what black men go through, but a lot of us will not express ourselves. He literally, tried to scare me, and I, to this day, don't know why, and threatened me with, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, what are you talking about? In my heart of hearts, I was in North Carolina, and I knew it was racism, but the hint of sexism there was quite obvious. It was intersectional, because we go back to slavery and rape. North Carolina's, the South. It was just, I don't need to explain to you what I'm talking about, because 9 times out of 10, there was nothing there anyway besides racism. I'm just going to treat you like a black bee, and you're going to do this and comply. Now, if black women, think this is their worst nightmare, you have no idea. I've been an activist for many years, and I've seen some boldness. Don't ever be in the South, even in Virginia, where I'm from, and be up in those hills, like going to Richmond on those backcountry streets somewhere past Williamsburg, because I used to vacation in Williamsburg a lot with my kids. And I had a sheriff's car following me for over a mile, and he was on my bumper. He had not turning his lights, which they're supposed to do because it's illegal. And I'm like, is this dude going to hit me? Is he going to follow me? That was when I had tinted windows back in the day. And they might have been an inch too dark. I'm not really sure. But when you pull somebody over, if you thought that, he followed me like, I'm going to, stop this car, pull you out, and shoot you, or R-word you, or something else. And finally, he just got ticked off because he couldn't get me to speed, and squealed off. Literally, you can hear the tire squealing to the right. This is what I'm talking about. People who've never been to the South, people who think ICE is the KKK, they don't know what the KKK is. They don't know what racism is. They don't know that this stuff still happens, that people will lie on your name, and because they're white, they will get away with it, and black people will internalize it and live their own best life with the delusion that whatever that white person made up, they're just going to go with, just like a coon, or whatever word you want to use, an Uncle Tom, which is an appropriate term, but you know what I'm talking about. And you're sitting here like, I don't have to put up with this, and I'm not going to put up with this, and I'm not going to live my life behind somebody else's delusion. I think they have me into some manic depressive, alcoholic, who knows, prostitute with, some type of educational problem that probably has, a million different drug histories or whatever the crap they've made up, right? Because they want this delusion. And when I open my mouth and they see that I'm not that delusion, then they're ticked off. Because they can't stand to see a smart black woman in their faces. They can't stand to see none of that crap be true, and for them to be losing because it affects their masculinity in men. And those who are jealous, I don't know, maybe they've been affected by some sort of satanic cabal or something. They're just deflated. And to that I say, good for them, because they deserve it. Go back to where you came from. You can continue to make up what you want. But for someone who didn't have much family, I did way better than most. My confidence level is way higher than most. Good luck with that. No, I ain't never been any of those things and don't plan to be. So keep making up stuff. Let me find out about it. And I will approach you directly. So don't play with me. And I know they were trying to steal my writings. I still got my writings. I haven't released them. For those of you who want to continue trying to do that, I would advise you against it. They were my writings. I can change them at any time. They're copyrighted. Don't worry about it. I don't play that either. I know how smart I am. I know who I am. I'm just waiting for you to move. I don't need people with jobs that haven't been anywhere before. No offense. Who don't know anything. No offense. I don't need white men who don't know us. White women who want to be us. I don't need black men who might want to be us too. Secretly. I don't need anyone else to help define us but us. And I definitely don't need someone to delusionally define me according to their lower standards and then pretend that those lower standards are acceptable, because I hate to tell them, but they're not. Money doesn't define me. You don't define me. I define me. And that goes, I hope, for any woman who's out here experiencing someone else who's trying to put delusional, just erotic type of fantasies over the reality. The reality is they have mental health issues. They enjoy voyeuristic behaviors. They enjoy watching you, stalking you, trying to pretend to control you. It's not a joke. They have real mental health issues. And people know in Asia they have problems, especially since I'm in Asia right now, looking at women in toilets in public places. I've never understood that. Some of that stems from psychological repression, I'm guessing, of never really seeing women and women being so shy. I don't know where that comes from. That's a totally different discussion, so I'll discuss that later. But yeah, some of that voyeurism extends to violence, but most of it just, depends upon how masculine that man wants to perceive himself as being and how much of that hostility he wants to project onto a woman, even when he doesn't know. Because if you want to listen to someone else and then project that type of delusion onto a person you don't know, or even one you did meet once, that's a decision that might change your life. You have a choice of whether you'd like to continue believing that that person is a threat to you, or if you want to be the man that you should be. And I'm not going to say man up or something like that, because we know that we can't say that anymore. I'm not a female sexist and I'm not a misogynist. I'm just going to say a female misogynist. I'm not any of those things. I'm just going to say, be the person you're supposed to be. At your age, if you're a grown person, which most of these people are, you should be well past that point, no matter what your education levels are. You know damn well better than to be pretending that a fantasy is true. Beyond the grade school level and maybe having a disability like my son has with autism, you know better. And you pretending over and over and over again isn't going to make it come true. It's a sad reality. It is just like the high school dork that keeps harassing you, doing all of these sexist things, things to impress his friends. Now, you notice none of those white high school dorks were bold enough to do it to us as black women unless they were racist. And I went to a high school that we dubbed White Boy High School because it was WBHS. And we had a lot of white folk. And those white men, no matter how racist and country they were, they never said anything to us. Luckily, we had a combination of some sophisticated white people that knew that this was stupid. They didn't do it either. They didn't step up the line because they knew it didn't make any sense. Once you see a black woman, you know you messed up. And those black men that wanted to participate with that, well, they didn't participate in anything with us. You know what I mean? Like there's a division line. You know what woman you can get away with that type of behavior with, and we are not it. So don't even come over here with that mess. But somewhere along the line, the women lost control in the black community. And they started letting this behavior become normalized. And now we have all of these beta men running around pretending with this PDD disorder or something that's similar, that the delusion they're having is the only solution. Like, what? What? So anyway, I'm going to go. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit later. This is my podcast. I'm a little bit late with it this week because I had a busy week. I will talk to you guys again on next week, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm out, and again, I'm going to post my Cash App. You guys, please feel free to send me what you want. I will take donations. I am petty. Trust me, I will. Because I need to feed these kids, and I need to keep doing what I'm doing. If you like what I'm doing, then please like my podcast so that I can get more reviews and I can get my followers up and all of that good stuff. Even though I don't like doing that, I understand how psychology works, but I do need to actually be able to know who I'm engaging with and if you like it or if you don't like it. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. I hope that you have a great day. Bye.